Hey guys, just the camera there for a second, but I wanted to come on here real quickly, or hopefully quickly, as I'm checking the security camera because my mom is asleep right now and it's a little after midnight. So she sleeps on the couch as I've mentioned before she gets up and goes and gets herself ready for bed because she's going to work. But the reason I wanted to come on here is because there is speculation, as I've mentioned briefly before, that Sonic may eventually get a love interest. That Sega themselves may be very less, restrictive on that possibility, and that some of the people that have worked on Sonic Frontiers, which has surpassed 3 million copies now, which I helped contribute to when I got my copy, basically, one of the people behind that has said that it's, something that's been discussed, for them to move forward with, have Sonic, get a girlfriend finally. And more than likely that girlfriend would be, from a game perspective, Miss Amy Rose. And more specifically, because of the way she's being portrayed right now in the games, as well as some other media. And honestly, this might surprise people, I wouldn't have a problem with it. Because I've seen that if done right, from watching, Sonic X, from watching Sonic Boom, and even looking into what's going on with Frontiers and other media, as well as even reading the comics, themselves, the comics themselves that Frank Hill gave me. Basically, in fact, I think I have one copy still on the ground here, but comics like this, basically, like I said, I really don't have a problem, with it, depending on, how she's portrayed, in these environments. I really don't. So, honestly, if, she ends up being the love interest, based on, the sudden character development that she's been having, again, I wouldn't have an issue with it. I really wouldn't. But I know others would. Because specifically, the one love interest we know he has is, of course, this lovely lady right here. This is his main love interest, all across Sonic media. We know that. We know that for a fact. But we also know that he's had a variety of potential love interests teased in the games, if not outside of them, when it comes to a Pacific fiery kitten. So to me, I'll put it this way, whatever they decide to do in the future, if they finally do officially go through with this and say, hey Sonic, we're going to give you a love interest now in the overall Sonic lore and structure, I'd be willing to give it a chance, because I think if, like I said, if done right, if written right, it could really be something that a lot of fans would thoroughly enjoy, in my opinion, because of the fact that, it's something new, it's, something that they've been waiting on and stuff. And again, it would, to me, depending on who they go with, I think would be a benefit in the long run. Now, of course, a lot of fans, like I said, are going to have their favorites when it comes to certain love interests, when it comes to Sonic or even Tails. I mean, heck, I recently did a review on the NFSW, very adult fan fiction story called Burning Passion involving Tails and Blaze, which was written by Made in Nowhere, not the Cyborg Fox or Zero Fox, but it does have the kind of same structure in storytelling, but basically it was made by Made in Nowhere. And yeah, to me, I really don't have, an issue, depending on how they go in these directions, how they decide to, incorporate romance finally into the main story lore, especially with, not just Sonic, but potentially Tails and potentially Knuckles and maybe even Shadow and Silver for that matter. But again, I have no issues with that whatsoever. I mean, they're already teasing in the comics pretty much that Tangle and Whisper are more than friends, or at least that's how, we as fans view it, that they're more than friends when they interact and hang out with each other. And there's various moments throughout the run of the IDW comic that we know that they feel that they're basically portrayed feeling that way for each other through numerous moments and everything, like Whisper breaking down because Tangle got zombotified, if you will. The way Tangle broke down in support and trying to understand Whisper and why she acts certain ways, and even recently, and so on and so forth. So, pretty much when you have those kind of moments, sprinkled throughout, the main comic and its various miniseries spin-offs, involving those kind of characters, you pretty much have an idea that, yeah, these characters are probably meant to be more than just friends, or pretty much are being hinted at as being more than just friends. That, it's just that the writing team, or the team responsible for the overall lore in all of Sonic media outside of the games, and somewhat with the games, is just waiting for the okay, or waiting for the signal to basically say, all right, you can put romance in there, just, do it in a way that doesn't, overwhelm the franchise, doesn't make that a priority over, what's important, and that's the storytelling of what, that's contained in the games, or the comics, or the shows, and stuff like that. So, honestly, when I think that moment comes, and it sounds like it's coming soon, I don't have an issue either way of how, it's done, or how it's portrayed, in the comics. I really don't. Or even in, shows like Sonic Prime, or the game, or even the games themselves. I don't really have a problem with it, because like I said, I've seen it done with Sonic X and Sonic and Amy there, and somewhat Knuckles and Rouge. I've seen it with, in Tails and Cosmo, for example. I've seen it with Sonic Boom and the interaction of Sonic and Amy there, and Tails and Zoe, and maybe even the little flirtatious moment between Percy and Tails. It's like, to me, if it's done right, if it's written right, I think it can work, and I think that's why now Sega seems to be more lenient on the possibility of it happening. Now again, we can't be sure whether or not, it's going to be Amy that they saddle Sonic with. I mean, game-wise, they might saddle him with Amy. That's a possibility. But as far as the comics goes, they might saddle him with the character that seems to be very similar to Sally in some ways recently, and that's Lanolin. Not Lanoline, but Lanolin. I know I pronounced that name wrong in the last video, but Lanolin, because of her similarity to Sally, and people can see that. Probably more so than the similarities that Amy and others have had. So, so it's like, if it's done right to where you can definitely separate the two as being part of their own separate continuities, even though it's supposed to all connect in some way, except the games are more like their own thing still, outside of the comics and stuff. Again, if done right to where you can definitely sense the difference, I don't have a problem with it. I really don't. I don't see an issue with it. I don't feel like there's going to be, any kind of drama, or any kind of like, oh, this pairing of Sonic is better than that pairing of Sonic, as before. I mean, there might be a bit of a debate and all that, but honestly, I don't think any problems will come from it if they're written and designed to be portrayed differently, so differently to the point that you get, okay, this ship of Sonic and Amy is game only, and it works better in the games than anywhere else. I'm cool with that. And as far as Sonic and Lanolin go, Lanolin go, if you will, that's perfect for the comics, because the dynamics just work off each other, with the characters when it comes to the different interpretations. Just like Sonic and Sally worked well in Sonic Sat.am and of course in Archie Comics. Before the soft retcon reboot retcon, whatever you want to call it. It worked perfectly. It worked well because you could feel the chemistry, you can sense it, you can believe it. And then of course, like I said, with Sonic X and even Sonic Boom, even through the comics and stuff, and Sonic X's comics and everything, it's like when they would tease, if not showcase a bit of Amy in there, Sonic Amy, you believed in it. You believed and accepted that ship in that environment, in that presentation of Sonic, worked and fit well in there because, how they bounced off each other, in that environment, in that world, and how the story helped make that happen. So to me, I look at it this way. At the forefront, whether people like to admit it or not, the number one romance ship for Sonic is always going to be him and Sonic. It's always going to be him and Sally. From the forefront, no matter whether you agree with it or you don't, when it comes to romance, even when this does potentially become official, in the forefront, fans are still going to consider Sonic and Sally the number one ship. And if this becomes official, they'll pretty much come out and say, see, now that this official, it pretty much confirms the romance Sonic had prior with Sally is official too. So you can't disargue that, or disagree with that, basically. So to me, even when that day comes, fans are still going to look at, because no matter what the decision will be, Sonic and Sally as the definitive romance in the overall Sonic franchise. They'll look at that as the definitive one. They'll look at Son Amy and different interpretations of that as like the second alternative, to that. And then right behind that, you could have Sonic and Blaze. You could have Sonic and Bunny. You can have Sonic and Lanolin, if you will. So, you could have all those right behind there. And then, of course, like I say, you have the other potential ships. Tails and Zoe, Tails and Cosmo, Tails and Mina, if you will. Bunny and Antoine, Nicole and Sally. The moment the day comes that Sega does come out and say, hey, all romance is now official in the overall Sonic lore, which would include past continuities and interpretations, when that day comes, a lot of fans are going to be excited because pretty much every ship that has been teased and made official throughout all different versions of Sonic in the past 30 years, will be acknowledged as officially canon, whether we like the ship or we don't. And again, that's on the heels of whatever direction they decide to go with when it comes to giving Sonic a love interest. Like I said, it could be basically, if I can bring it back out, it could be Amy Rose. It could be, Blaze, if you will. It could be Lanolin, if you will. The girl that reminds people of Sally more so than the other versions of characters like Amy and Tangled have in the past. So, so to me, I could see, I can see basically that if they go in one of those directions, depending on what they do, everybody will be willing to accept that, no matter like I said, who they decide to go with or how they do it, because they'll officially have the piece to them, or piece of, they'll officially have peace in their minds, as a fan, that the ships that they've always known were legit and official are now given that status by the place themselves, the creators themselves, the founders, the company itself, Sega. They will officially know that what they fought for now has, purpose, now has officiality behind it. But again, it's all going to depend on what they decide to do. Again, like I said, if the day comes, they finally make it official. Who is it going to be for Sonic? Who's it going to be for Tails? Who's it potentially going to be for Knuckles if they give him one? For Silver, maybe even Shadow. Who's it going to be? And a lot of people are pointing a lot of fingers. When that day comes, will the Tangle and Whisper relationship in the comics and outside of it finally be able to blossom and be a strong representation, more so than it has ever been for the LGBTQ community. We don't know. But I can tell you this, I can tell you this, no matter who you ship, or how you ship them and all that, I can guarantee you this, the day Sega makes it official that romance is now a part of the overall Sonic franchise and lore, and on that same day that they make the announcement, and alongside it say, we have a girlfriend now for Sonic, but you'll just have to wait until a certain time to find out, which probably won't be far from when that moment is, or that announcement is made at that time and place. I guarantee you, a lot of fans that have shipped many characters of Sonic, officially and unofficially, will have high praise for that moment, because again, their ship, whether it was visually indicated and evidently shown, like Sonic and Sally, and and so on, and Tails and Zoe, and Tails and Cosmo, and Tangle and Whisper, all of them will have reason to be happy and to praise Sega, because now the head honchos themselves, out of Japan itself, would have said, yep, romance is official, it's canon, and everything that's been connected to it or will be connecting to it is officially canonized, in their own interpretation in alternate multi-universes. So, again, I think when that day comes, when that announcement gets made, not only will we, not only will shippers be celebrating, but when word gets out that they're going to be revealing, probably down the line, a little after the announcement, that's we're going to see who Sonic's love interest is. Again, like I said, knowing that all the other ships that we've seen, in official licensed merchandise and stuff like that, and shows and comics and everything, not only will we have that satisfaction of knowing, hey, those are now canonized and officially in their world, in their multi-universes, if you will, but on top of that, I don't think they have a problem with whoever they pair Sonic with and how they do it. Like I said, if they pair Sonic with Amy just for the games only, that's fine. If they pair him up with Lanolin, in the IDW comics, that'll be fine too. If they decide to go with Blaze in the game and Amy in the comics, that's fine too. So I don't think they'll have a problem either way, because at least they will know what ships were in the past, and seen in official licensed merchandise like comics and shows and all that. Not only will they have that knowledge that it's been canonized officially by Seiko Japan themselves, but as a result, they'll be more willing and accepting to whoever they pair Sonic up with in this current generation. And hey, if they bring Sally back and do him and her, that would be even better for a lot of fans, honestly, especially longtime fans. But again, I don't think any fans would have a problem, and that's all I can really say on it. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Comment below, live chat during the premiere. You will get an audio podcast version of this at my B.W. Rosas Discussions podcast and all your favorite audio podcast platforms. More specifically, you can check it out at Spotify, but you won't find it at Pandora. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are. How would you feel when this day comes? And until next time, I'm out.